Good morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I call the meeting of Wednesday, July 14th to order. First on our agenda is preliminary matters. And under preliminary matters, the first one is request for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or ex-agenda items. And I haven't received any requests for any of those. So we will hear the two items on the agenda. The next one is announcements and appeals, and I have no announcements, and we've had no recent appeals. So we'll move on to comments from members of the public pertaining to items not on today's agenda. If you would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda, you may do so by clicking on the raise your hand icon, and it's shown on the screen right now. It's with a green arrow, and you only need to click it once and it will turn red, and it'll indicate that to me that you would like to make some public comment. And if I see it raised, I will call your name and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. So if you would like to make a general public comment on items not on today's agenda, you may raise your hand now. You seeing no one? I'll go to the first item, which is 1330 San Miguel Avenue. If staff and the applicant would like to turn on your webcam, so then I can see both you or all of you. And then Robert, whenever you're ready, you may go ahead and give your presentation.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Reardon, and good morning. I'm Robert Dostalek. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm Robert Dostalek, Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. And as noted, the project before you today is to replace all exterior doors and windows, to construct a new 144 square foot second floor deck, and remodel 340 square feet of the existing primary residence. The front setback modification is requested to allow the new window openings within a non-conforming building setback, and that's the reason that we're here today. The project site is located at 1330 San Miguel Avenue, and that's in the East Mesa neighborhood of the city, near the intersection of San Miguel Avenue and Los Alamos Avenue. There's a small vicinity map on the front sheet for reference. And a little background on the site. The site is developed with an approximately 1,002 square foot single family residence, an attached 454 square foot garage, and a 106 square foot storage shed. And it should be noted that a separate planning application and building permit were approved to convert the existing attached garage to an accessory dwelling unit, also referred to as an ADU. And for basic zoning and general plan, the project site is zoned E3/SD3 under Title 28 of the Municipal Code, and that's the coastal zoning ordinance. The coastal land use plan designation is residential with a 5 dwelling unit per acre maximum. And the properties surrounding the project site are zoned for and developed with residential improvements. And overall, the project would adhere to applicable building height, open yard, parking standards, and other zoning development standards. And Mr. Russell, if you could scroll to sheet A3, which are the elevations, please. There we go, thank you. So the southernmost portion of the building is non-conforming because it encroaches approximately 4.5 feet into the required 20-foot front setback. And as a component of the garage conversion to an ADU, new window openings were required by building code on the eastern side of the southern garage facade for egress and are not subject to zoning review and approval. And actually, if you could show that other elevation, yes, thank you. And so the windows on the left side of the garage, again, were required by building code for egress and aren't subject to zoning review and approval. However, the new window openings proposed on the western side, which are to the right, are voluntary and are therefore subject to the front setback modification. And many buildings in this neighborhood are characterized by a non-conforming garage element that encroaches into the front setback. And additionally, the applicant letter included photo examples of building in the surrounding neighborhood with window openings in or near the front setback of similar proportion. And staff is supportive of the modification request, as the project would result in development that is generally consistent with existing patterns of development for the neighborhood and would promote uniformity of improvement to the existing structures on the site. The project would be consistent with similar window openings within the front setback and the surrounding neighborhood. And additionally, as you can see here, the window openings would create symmetry or uniformity with the new window openings required by the building code for egress. And additionally, it would not create a privacy concern to neighboring parcels because they would face San Miguel Avenue. In other words, they'd be facing the street. They would also make the ADU more livable by providing added southern light exposure. And design review was required for the project, and that's because it includes alterations to the second story of the building and a new second floor deck that is greater than 3 feet in width and 7 feet in length. The project received conceptual design review by the Single Family Design Board on May 24th, 2021. And the main comment from the board at that time was to the applicant was to reconsider the color palette for the overall proposed window system. And this was due to concerns that the silver aluminum window finish may be too stark and it may not be compatible with the natural wood deck that is proposed, and also with the design scheme of neighboring buildings or neighboring residences, if you will. And otherwise, the applicant was directed to return for project design approval for the project. And to touch on environmental review, or CEQA as we call it, California Environmental Quality Act, the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines section 15301 and 15305. And the project site is located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. And because of this, we would be able to authorize the construction of those improvements by applying a coastal exemption to the project. And with that, the recommendation with the ability to make the findings for the front setback modification, staff recommends that the staff hearing officer approve the project. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thanks.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Marr, would you like to provide additional comments?
Well, basically, I think Robert did a very good job of summarizing the project. You know, my main points are that we feel like the proposed windows do provide a more balanced front elevation. And as Robert had said, I walked around the neighborhood and took photos of houses within basically a 5-minute walk of this site that had all had window changes in non-conforming front yards that had occurred since the houses were originally built. And so it seemed like what we're proposing is consistent with, you know, what's been going on in the neighborhood. So basically that's about it, I think.
Okay, and then what about, how are you planning to respond to the SFDB's comment regarding the color palette?
Well, my clients have a white house and they bought it that way and they like it as white. And so they would like to continue with the white house, and they do like the more, you know, modern aesthetic of the clear anodized aluminum. And so we were going to go back to the full board. The original, you know, comments were just made on the consent calendar with, you know, 2 board members present. And so we'd like to go back and present the, you know, proposed palette to the entire board and get their reaction. And then if they react negatively, then we'll reassess at that time. But the clients would like to just move forward with the way they have it.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. I think that's my comments for right now. So I'll like to open the public comment portion. Okay, so I'm looking at the list. Okay, so if you would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1330 San Miguel Avenue, you may do so by clicking on the raise your hand icon in the description shown up here on the screen. It's the little circle with the hand and the green arrow. You only need to click on it once and it will turn red. And I will see that in the list here. And if I see you raise your hand, I'll call your name and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Okay, so if you would like to raise your hand. Okay, I see no one. Mary, have we received any emails on this project or correspondence since the meeting started?
Thank you, Ms. Reardon. We have not received any written correspondence for this item. Back to you. Okay,
Great, so I'll close the public hearing. And it's back to me. This project, in regards to the proposed window, it's minor. My purview is just the one window out of all the windows that you're replacing. So I respect the design review board's opinion regarding the color scheme, and I'm happy to hear that you are going back to the full board to get their input on the color scheme and whether they're okay with the with what is proposed or not. If this project was located outside of the coastal zone in Title 30, it actually would be, it wouldn't require the modification. It could get an MZE before the design review board, just because we recognize as part of the major update to our zoning ordinance that changes like this inside of the front setback really is a design type issue more than a zoning type issue because it's facing the street. So the concern would be what it does to the public setting, the visual openness of the street. So these types of issues or projects, they're supportable. And like I said, the addition of the window won't affect the visual openness of the street. So I can make the findings outlined in the staff report. Staff wasn't proposing any conditions, and I don't need to add any conditions to be able to make the findings. So, and actually I'm just gonna make the minor changes to recognize that the new window, not only does it provide the symmetry with the one required for the ADU, but it also won't affect the visual openness of the street. So with that, I approve your project. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They also have oversight authority of all my action. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those options would happen, Robert will contact you. Okay?
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. All right. So we'll move on to the next item, which is 230 South Constance, or sorry, East Constance. And Robert, if you would like to, and then also if the applicant team would like to turn on your mic, or your, not your mic, your webcam, but remain muted, that's fine with me. That way we can be kind of simulating that we're in the public meeting room, looking at each other. So anytime you're ready, Robert.
Thanks. And just again, for the record, I'm Robert Dostalek, Associate Planner at the Community Development Department. And the project before you today is for an interior setback modification in association with the proposed 509 square foot addition to the existing residence on the site. And just to get the bearings, the project site is located at 230 East Constance Avenue in the Upper East neighborhood of the city. And for basic zoning and general plan, the project site is zoned RS15, and that's under Title 30 of the Municipal Code. The general plan land use designation is low density residential. And the properties surrounding the project site are zoned for and developed with residential improvements. For general zoning consistency, the project would adhere to applicable building height, open yard, parking, and other development standards under Title 30 of the Municipal Code. And to give a little background, if you could scroll to sheet A101, please, which I believe is the main site plan page. Great, thank you. And as you can see, the site is developed with an existing single-family residence of approximately 1,757 square feet. And it also includes an approximately 444 square foot attached garage. And a modification pre-consultation was completed last year to explore the feasibility of this current project. And to discuss the modification, perhaps you can zoom in on the lower portion of the site plan a little bit, please. And a modification to the eastern interior setback is requested for the proposed addition. And interior setbacks are intended to provide physical building separation, access to light and airflow, and fire protection. So it's multi-purpose. A portion of the existing residence is non-conforming, and you can see it in that lowest part of the building because it encroaches approximately 5.5 feet into the 10-foot interior setback. At its closest point to the eastern property line, the proposed master bedroom addition, which is the portion in pink, and then there's the area of encroachment just below, it's just more of a peach color. The proposed master bedroom addition would encroach 4 feet 6 and 11/16 inches, or about 4.5 feet, into the interior setback. And this is farther from the property line than the existing building footprint. At its northernmost point, the addition would encroach 1 foot into the eastern interior setback. The existing encroachment area is approximately 110 gross square feet, and the total proposed encroachment area would be approximately 80 gross square feet. And Mr. Russell, if you could scroll to, there's an exhibit titled Show Neighborhood Exhibit. That would be helpful. There we go. And staff is supportive of the proposed modification. The subject parcel is irregularly shaped in that it tapers from the street frontage along East Constance Avenue to the southern or rear portion of the property. Several neighboring parcels on the south side of East Constance, just to the left and right of it on this map, have similar tapered lot configurations due to the arc in this section of the roadway. And additionally, there are examples of residences in the immediate neighborhood that exhibit non-conforming setbacks, including the adjacent property to the east. And those are circled with the red circles. And you can see that the roof eaves are fairly close to each other. And if you could go back to the site plan, please, which is sheet 101A. Thank you. And the site plan, you can also see the floor plan within. And the floor plan of the addition was designed to position the closets within the setback to minimize windows facing the adjacent residence. However, one window is proposed on the west elevation for the shower area of the bathroom. Also, at 80 square feet, the area of encroachment is relatively modest in size, would be well screened from public view, and would align with the existing orientation of the residence for internal circulation. And lastly, the applicant letter also included an exhibit of 4 different conforming project options that were explored but were determined to be infeasible and or impracticable in order to secure an appropriate improvement on the site and to prevent an unreasonable hardship due to the site's physical characteristics. And these different options included various locations, sizes, and configurations of the proposed addition. For design review, the project does require design review by the Single Family Design Board, and that's because the project site is located in the Mission Area Special Design District, and improvements are being proposed to a building therein. The project received conceptual design review by the Single Family Design Board on January 19th, 2021. And at that time, the board determined that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria had been met as it relates to the proposed addition, and that includes privacy considerations of neighboring properties. For environmental review, per the city's master environmental assessment, the entirety of the project site is mapped within the American City and early 20th century archaeological sensitivity zones. And an archaeological letter report was prepared for the project by David Stone and dated November 4th, 2020. and that was submitted with the project materials. The report concluded that the proposed project would not have the potential to impact intact, significant, or prehistoric resources. And accordingly, the standard archaeology discovery condition is recommended as a condition of project approval. Otherwise, the project is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines sections 15301 and 15305. And the recommendation is with the ability to make the findings for the interior setback modification. Staff recommends the staff hearing officer approve the project with the noted condition related to archaeology. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't have any questions for you right now. The applicant team would like to introduce themselves and provide any additional comments.
Thank you. Yes, this is Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting. And I'm with Bailey. Introduce yourself.
I'm Bailey Hockelter with Clear Construction, working on the design and the construction of the project.
And thank you, Mr. Dostalek, for a very thorough overview of our proposed project. I think I just have a few additional comments to state. The staff report is very clear. We understand that the property is existing non-conforming to the interior setback requirement. The site plan that's up is doing a good job of demonstrating that. One thing that the staff report mentions and is a code provision, a zoning ordinance provision that we did take a look at. And Mr. Dostalek, I'm not sure if you mentioned this. I was listening, but it could be that you touched on this and I didn't hear you, that there is an allowance in Title 30 that allows a non-conforming development to continue the plane of the existing encroachment for a distance of 20 linear feet. And we did look at that as an option to see if the owner's goals could be met with that. And while that provision is, appreciated in the code, it didn't quite provide enough of an addition to make sense for the master bedroom addition and really the shape and really the limiting factor with that provision has to do with the shape of the property. As Mr. Dostalek noted and showed in his neighborhood map, no reason to pull that up right now, I don't think, is that the nature of these property lines and how they taper. So we have a property line that's tapering, and then we have the angle of, I guess it's hard to not point to the site plan. You can't see me pointing the things, but in terms of, if you can sort of show the eastern property line there, Mr. Russell, and just kind of wave the hand over that, and then how the eastern, which is, right there, and then how the footprint of the existing house is a parallel to that feature. So that's just an added constraint and something that Mr. Hockelter considered when looking at a recommended design for this house. So again, I think we have really strong basis for a reasonable zoning modification. The addition is modest in size. The area of encroachment is very small. Mr. Russell, if you can zoom in where you were on the site plan there. Thank you. To show that, really a major design consideration and floor plan consideration is what's happening in that area of the encroachment. And so the intent was purposeful to have the closets there without any windows. Yes, there is a bathroom on the sort of northern portion of the addition. And you can see there that it's a very minimal encroachment. You can see, Mr. Russell, can you point to where the 10-foot line? Yes, exactly right there. You could see that dashed line going across is the 10-foot setback. So you could see where that's occurring, the encroachment is very minor. It does range, as Mr. Dostalek mentioned, from 1 foot at that portion, and then it increases just in order to have a functional space and a functional master bedroom in that area. So we do have a window placed there, but for the remainder of the addition, the intent is to not have any windows on that side. Part of our analysis was to evaluate potentially conforming options. And if we can go to page 5 of the plan set, Mr. Russell, that should be the floor plan, and then zooming in on that area of the master addition is.
The orientation is rotated here.
So we have to rotate to fit it on the page.
There you go.
Well, actually, maybe just stay right there before you zoom, and I think that's fine right there. What you can see is the layout of the existing house and where the garage is, the living space, the kitchen. We did add a dining room area to the common, sort of the living space portion of the house, with all the bedrooms kind of wrapping around that main living area on the east side. That makes sense in terms of, the layout, the design of the house, and the circulation of the house, to propose this master bedroom on this side of the property. Bailey, did you have anything you wanted to add with that analysis?
Specifically regarding the design? I mean, I would say
in terms
that,
of why
Yeah,
we're
so-
proposing it there.
right. Yeah, we were obviously conscious of the impact that it might have on the easterly neighbor. So we kept the windows in the master bedroom out of the setback. That was a very specific decision, conscious decision. Yeah, I mean, we did have a graphic that we submitted to the staff for other options of design that and reasons why they were infeasible, which Robert referred to in his comments. I don't know if that's relevant to pull up.
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to mention and explain to the staff hearing officer our process in deciding on moving ahead with the zoning modification. It's something we, study very carefully.
And
And
I would just say one specific design consideration that we took pretty seriously was, if you can go back to the site plan, please.
so page 3 of the PDF.
So if you note this south side of the proposed addition, we intentionally kept it north of the south side of the neighboring structure. So if you scroll down a bit to the easterly neighbor, we intentionally kept it from projecting south because we didn't want to disturb their view through the yard. So that was just touching on one of the specific design considerations we had. Was if we narrowed up the entire space and we extended it to the south, we felt like that would have more of a visual impact than having it, consistent with the existing encroachment of the existing house. So.
And then just to, if I may, Bailey, hopefully not cutting you off, to wrap up, we have been in conversations with our neighbor to the east, the neighbor closest to this easterly property boundary. They did submit a letter stating some concerns. Since that letter submission, we're further explaining our project, the intent, and the shared desire by both parties to maintain privacy along that shared property boundary. And so we did submit earlier this week some added exhibits and information while we're out in the field under construction with phase 1 for the permitted work for the remodel. Some of the vegetation was removed from the shared fence right there. Mr. Russell, if you could, I don't know what it's labeled here. There's a backyard photo. Maybe you can help. Yes, exactly. So this shows, this is a current photograph. We did discuss this with the staff hearing officer at the site. You could see the flat area is where the master bedroom addition is gonna go. The flat area where there's dirt right there. And then, thank you. And then the fence beyond, there was vegetation on there. It's pulling that fence down so that the vegetation came away. So we have been talking about this feature along the property boundary and working with the neighbor to come up with a mutually agreeable screening solution. We're still in progress with that conversation. Certainly, the intention is to put back vegetation there and continue to maintain the privacy that's afforded there. We did provide a section and then a site plan exhibit to show that screening. I know it's not really part of the purview of the staff hearing officer in terms of it does not require a zoning modification, but I think it's important to, you know, explain to you, Ms. Reardon, as the decision maker, that we are discussing this with the neighbor and working out a solution. We'd be open to a project condition that that's, you know, communication to the single family design board where we would go next to work out the particulars of that design in terms of materials, height, and species of vegetation. Mr. Russell, I'll be happy if you show the section drawing that I think demonstrates that relationship.
One labeled applicant east, I think.
There you go. So it's Bailey Bailey came up. Yeah, I mean it's hard to show because of how you can see the site is sloping to the south. But go ahead if you want to walk through that.
There's a depth of field in this section, so you can see the hedge kind of increase in height as it goes north. But the black outline is kind of an instantaneous section taken at the closest point of proposed addition. So the black line outlining the right side of that portion of the building is the closest it would get to the property line. And that hedge is the relative height at that point, which is 8 feet, which is the maximum allowable height permissible on a property line for hedging. And then the 6-foot fence is shown in relationship with that as well.
I think we should go ahead and show the hedging plan exhibit that's up there. Yeah. Oh,
it's the same as the site plan. It just shows that we've been in conversation with the eastern neighbor because this is obviously a particular concern to them, and they actually wrote an email this morning of sort of preliminary support of this modification, with the understanding that we will come to an agreement on hedging and fence line that will be appropriate for both property owners.
And I think that covers all the detail. Bailey, was there anything else that you feel is pertinent with our presentation? Otherwise, we're available for questions.
Not at this time, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I do have 2 questions at this time. One, the bathroom window, is it operable and or opaque? Within the
I'm sorry, it is operable. It is not proposed to be opaque. Is that right, Bailey?
Yes, though we
So
understand.
the elevation is page 8 of the plan set PDF.
Yeah, it looked like a slider from the, but what were you gonna
We'd
say?
like
Babe?
it to be operable for
It would likely
light
be-
and development.
It would likely be an awning window, but we understand that we still have, you know, contingent on this, the approval of this modification request, we would still go through SFDB for some of these details.
So it would be the east elevation down at the bottom left.
Bottom right.
Oh,
Oh, no, bottom left. No,
Yeah.
okay.
This is it.
My left, your right. Just-
Yeah.
it's, oh, there. Okay, T1.
Two.
Yeah, the red line around the roof is the addition.
Okay, correct, yeah. Okay, and then can you go back to the site plan, Will, please?
That's page 3.
Okay, and scroll down to the addition. Right, so I read your letter and I saw all the other options that you studied. And, okay, this is a question first, and then I'll do comments after the public hearing part. But, okay, so I saw all the different options that you proposed. Did you also look at an option that would, it would encroach into the setback up to the line of the bathroom, which is the solid line, Will, in the middle, right? You keep going up a little. Right there, okay. So if you went up the setback line and then cut over at that area, so in the middle of the closet, and then continue the line up on the inside of the closet, so then it's not in the setback, and then go over and then bump the addition, the like 4 feet that you lose for the closets, bump that into the concrete patio area. That way the bathroom would stay the same and the dimensions of the bedroom would stay the same, but it would just be pushed west.
So yeah, we did explore the option of pushing the volume to the west, but one of the main features of the building is the flat roof section over the main living space, which is the open kitchen, living, dining area. And there's a large opening that's shown there onto the concrete patio that's centered on the overall mass of that section. So by pushing that over, you'd throw off the symmetry of the building from the rear. So from the exterior, or if you tried to recenter the door, then you'd throw off the symmetry from the interior. And we sort of, I guess argued is the wrong word, but it's the only one I can think of right now, that was a big character of the house, and we didn't want to detract from that. That was a big value
It's
add.
a feature. It's when you're in that main living space there, to have those big doors looking out to the large yard beyond, and having that space be symmetrical, just from an aesthetic, a circulation and aesthetic standpoint, and then also just placement of furniture seem to make sense. So yes, stretching the addition, I guess,
It's also worth
not to
noting.
the west, but to the south, just didn't give the room that you needed to place the furniture too.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that from a structural standpoint, there's a current line of resistance going through the house that's perfectly in line with the west side of the proposed addition where the doors are. So we'd be able to continue the roof line through, so it makes construction much more feasible.
Okay, those are my comments right now. I'm gonna open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the staff hearing officer on this item, which is 230 East Constance Avenue, you may do so by clicking on the raise your hand icon, which is the little circle with the hand and the green light shown on the screen. You only need to click it once and it will turn red. And if I see your raised hand icon, I will call on you and you will have 2 minutes to speak. So I'll give you, I see some people in attendance, but I think they're all associated with the property owner. Mary, have we received, they alluded to, I would note for the record, I did receive public comment from Jeff Burkus. It was from last Thursday on the email that he did express concerns with the addition. And then it was noted that a follow-up email was sent this morning. Mary, we received that?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Reardon. We did receive a second letter from Mr. Jeff Burkus, and it was distributed to you prior to this meeting.
Okay, and then no other communication?
No additional written correspondence has been received.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I see there's no raised hands, so I will close the public hearing and I'll go back to me. So if we can go back to the site plan, I just want to respond to that one comment regarding the provision of the code that would have allowed this addition to be in line with the plane. It actually doesn't meet three elements of that requirement. One is that it continues the line of the plane of that existing wall, which it doesn't. Two, it needs to be less than 20 linear feet, which it doesn't. And then also, it has to be a minimum of 5 feet from the interior property line. So it doesn't meet any of those. So it's really, although it's, the code does recognize situations that were considered or were caused by a rezoning of properties in the early, I think it's 80s, to allow those types of things, it wouldn't pertain in this situation because the existing house, the plane that's closest to the interior property line is already closer than 5 feet. So that part really isn't, it's an interesting point, but it doesn't really, that's the main elements of that section. So in regards to the request, one of the main considerations is there another area that could house the addition and meet the purposes of the zoning ordinance in terms of providing separation, building separation, light and air, that kind of stuff. Is there another area? And there is a couple other areas on this property that can accommodate that, but doesn't work with a floor plan. In regards to the comment that it might work over by the garage because you'd have to access the addition through the garage. You could put another alcove in the addition, similar to how you get into the master bedroom on the other side, and it would be accessible from the main living area versus through the garage. In terms of the access, it would be kind of through the kitchen area, and would that be real appropriate? I'm not sure. But when you look at the majority of the addition, when you look at I know this is zoned, what did you say? What's the new RS 15, which requires a 10-foot setback. But when you look at the RS 7, it is a 6-foot setback. So when you look at this, the majority of the addition does meet that lower setback of 6 feet. And I know these are larger lots, and the idea is to have, the larger setbacks, and that, is the request that significant of a request? I'm really glad to hear that you've reached out to that neighbor and you've been in discussions with them and negotiating, and explaining your thought process that, you're minimizing the number of windows in that portion that encroaches into the setback. You've kept it south of the building line so that it doesn't impact their views of the openness. Their building in that area is 2 stories, but I don't remember seeing any windows. Will, can you go back to that backyard photo again, please? Thank you. I think there is some in the, where they have a little alcove that faces your way, but in terms of that, facade that faces it, Ms. Ellen, or is there any, do you remember? And I know I looked through there and I don't remember seeing at least any on the 2nd floor.
I don't believe there are any windows on
I
that.
don't think there are windows. And just a quick, I know you're in your discussion, Ms. Jordan, but we believe it's a 1-story element there. It's just a tall volume, and I believe their grade is a little bit higher. So I just wanted to correct that for.
Okay. Okay.
for
Thank
the
you for
record.
that. Yeah,
But
it
I don't
does.
see any windows in that mess.
From this vantage point, and it does appear that it's 2
It's-
stories. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a 1-story. Okay. So can you go back to the site plan, Will, again? Sorry. Making you use your finger, your clicker today. This project, I can say that I do struggle with, about making the findings in terms of, there's not a true hardship in this case. Typically it's a physical hardship, like a grade difference. But in this instance, I understand what you're stating as the hardship is the angled property line and the location of the existing development. But a way to get around that would be to flip it and put it on the other side of the garage. And then, you wouldn't be having this this rub. But in regards to the window, the reason why I asked if it was opening or not, because that is another point of conflict that I've heard in other projects with neighbors, and that just the nuisance of having the noise, bathroom sounds and that, and within the setback closer. And I realize you can move it back a couple feet, and would that really make the sound any different? I don't know, but if that window were to be inoperable, I could get to the findings in that the project has been designed with the neighbors, with the potential conflict in the setback, to reduce that as much as possible in terms of the openings and the use that is right within the setback, being that it's the closet. So I would put it back to the applicant team if you would be amenable to the requirement that that window be non-operable.
Well, we have not discussed that with our client. What they have expressed to us is the strong desire to have an operable window. It is placed, do you want to go ahead?
I'm really sorry, yeah. I just texted with the owner and they said they're fine with committing to an inoperable window
Oh, I'm
in
sorry.
that shower.
Okay. All right, great.
I didn't get that text.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thought it would help to get a quick answer.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Then with that helps reduce the potential annoyance, or what's the other word I'm looking for? Nuisance. Thank you, Chris. The nuisance issues. And then also with, like I started saying earlier, I'm not sure if I completed my thought, with the working with the neighbor in regards to the landscape screening and replacing that fence and doing the hedge. I think that'll help a lot with the neighbor. And like you said, that's not in my purview. With having the window be non-operable, I feel comfortable at making the findings that were in the staff report. Let me read what they were. Yeah, so I can make the finding outline the staff report and add that condition that the new window within the setback be non-operable. I'll leave it up to the property owner whether it be opaque or not. But just my concern is more of the being inoperable. Staff is also proposing that archaeological condition, and you've reviewed the condition and understand it and agree with it?
That's right.
Okay, great. So with that, I'll make the finding as outlined in the staff report, subject to the condition originally proposed and the new one I just added. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt that warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that would occur, Robert would contact you. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thanks. And that was the last item on our agenda, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.